This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, Rabbi Glatstein, I'm going to have Shabbos as we prepare for Parshas Zachor. We know Parshas Zachor is, according to the Shita of Tosfos and Masechta Megillah, Masechta Brachos, is a mitzvah d'oraisa, and according to the Rosh, it's a mitzvah d'oraisa to hear with a minyan, and according to some, part of the mitzvah is to hear the brachos as well. And that's why, as medakdik as we are in the Kriyas HaTorah the whole year, we are more medakdik in the Kriyas HaTorah of Parshas Zachor. So I want to bring to your attention two Trup on the laning of Parshas Zachor that we learn out unbelievable things. And the first is Zachor, which is a Zakef Gadol. Now, what is the significance of the fact that Parshas Zachor begins with a Zakef Gadol?
Well, Zakef means fast and Gadol means big, right?
Well, Zakef means
big way and do it fast.
Let's see. So, the Reb Chaim Falaji, one of the all-time great Sephardic Gedolim, wrote many, many Sfarim. He writes in a Sefer, Nefesh Kol Chai, that if you look at a Zakef Gadol, really what a Zakef Gadol is a Vav and two Yuds. Just like we said that a Chirik is one Yud, and a Tseirei is two Yuds, we've said this in the past, and a Segel is three Yuds, even in Gematria, and a Kamatz is a Vav and a Dat, which is a Vav and a Yud. A Zakef Gadol is two Yuds and a Vav, which is 26. Yud Kei Vav Kei. Indication is that Kozman, that Amalek is in the world, Ki Yad Al Keis Ka, that Hashem's name is incomplete. But Zachor, when you remember to destroy Amalek, you know what's going to happen? Zakef Gadol. Hashem's name will be full again. Hashem's name will become Yud Kei Vav Kei. That's the significance of the Zakef Gadol. Okay? That's the first offering. Second offering. And this is something we once mentioned in a shir many years ago. Maybe 4 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago. There's a Gemara in Bava Basra. It has a whole sugya about cosigners and other very complex cases in Bava Basra Daf Mem Vav. And as a mnemonic to help you remember the four complicated cases of the Gemara says, you know how you remember it? Amalek Siman. The Siman to remember the four cases is Amalek. Amalek Siman. And asked Rabbi Yaakov Emden, wait a second, aren't you supposed to forget Amalek? The one thing, when I was a kid, when Purim time, you would write Amalek on the bottom of your shoe, and you would rub it out, right? Don't forget Timcha Zecha Amalek Kimachai Emcha. You want to wipe out Amalek, and here you want to wipe out Amalek, and the Gemara is saying a mnemonic to help you remember halachos is Amalek. So you hear this Talmud Chacham is walking down the street, Amalek, Amalek, Amalek. Ayin is the Arev and Mem is right. That's a bad siman. You're supposed to forget Amalek. Why would you use Amalek as a mnemonic to help you remember? Okay. So if you remember, we once spoke out that the Zohar HaKadosh says that if you look in the Asar Hadibros, we know there's a Tam Elyon and a Tam Tachtoin. In the Tam Tachtoin, it's Loi Sirtzach V'loi Sinaf, where it's Loi Sirtzach with a Saf. Why? Because the Saf is preceded by a vowel, Aleph, and whenever a Beged Kefes letter is preceded by a vowel, let's say a Tuf is Beged Kefes, it drops the Dagish. But in the Tam Elyon, it's Loi Tirtzach. Why? Because there's a tipcha after the loy, and the tipcha is a comma, and it pauses, and it makes a separation between the loy and the tirtzach. Whoa, why is it tirtzach? But it's preceded by an aleph. No, it's like it's not preceded by the aleph, because the tipcha is like a comma, is a melech, and it's a pause. Says the Zohar HaKadosh, the world stands on that tipcha. Why? Because without that tipcha, if it would say loy sirtzach, that means you would never be allowed to kill, ever, even in Bezdin, even capital punishment. But now that it says loy, comma, tirtzach, usually don't kill, but sometimes loy, sometimes tirtzach, kill, sometimes tinaf, sometimes commit adultery. How? That's for a different time. Okay? And sometimes you should steal. How should you steal? The Zohar says you should steal the mind of your Rebbe. What does that mean? You should do whatever you need to do to trick your Rebbe into liking you. Okay? In other words, even if you're not listening, make believe you're listening. This way, maybe well, I think the Zohar says exactly, butter him up so he tells you better chidushim. Okay. And what about loy sachmoid? You shouldn't be jealous. But when it comes to Torah, you should desire Torah. Okay? So the world stands on the tipcha. Says Rabbi Yaakov Emden, the same thing with Amalek. Timches zeicher Amalek mitachas hashamayim loy tishkach. Don't forget.
Right,
But sometimes, tishkach, you should forget to eradicate Amalek. When should you forget to eradicate Amalek?
When you have the seven in the
When it
Torah.
helps you learn better. When it helps you remember Torah, then you should forget to eradicate Amalek. Okay? Lo, the same way it's loy, kama, tirtzach, loy, kama, tinaf, loy, kama, tignoiv, loy down tachmoy, right? So too, it's loy, to look at number 4. Amalek Siman. Not Rabbi Yaakov Emden, he wasn't, yeah? Nichta b'tzidai. Chiddush. It's a chiddush. Nitnu Siman kazeh b'mishan amar by Timcha zech Amalek. Ulai matzulai remez. Maybe the remez is Misham hachi b'may desayim kra loy tishkach shetevas loy mufsekes betam tipcha. The word loy is interrupted with a tipcha. Lahayrais. Sheyesh makam gam l'shikcha. That there is a place, there's a time to forget. And an example, Rabbi Yaakov Emden in parentheses cites the Zohar. We quoted, Dugma lezeh darshu b'sefer HaZohar, ba'azharais sheba'aseres hazdibros. Ulahatir lehishtamesh by le'ukmei agersa. If Amalek could help you remember, in other words, if you have a complicated sugya, and the only way to remember it is Hitler Siman, yeah, the H stands for, I don't know, some hilchos, hafla, and the tough stand. You know, if you could use a Rasha to help you remember the Gemara, then we say loy kama tishkach. Says the Rav Yaakov Emden, the kalmad the asar shari. Whatever is prohibited, there's something corresponding to it that's permitted. Lahachnes menuvel lebeis hamedrash. Sometimes you got to bring the menuvel into the beis hamedrash. L'shaber koichai, to break his koyach, u'lahoitzi mimenu nitzas kadosha shabai, and to remove his bad spark. So sometimes you got to bring Amalek into the base medrash. Amalek siman. Rabbi Sai.
Can I ask a question?
Agin Shabbos.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.